thing I want to do is get Velociraptor working. 371 Velociraptor server on Linux. So, we could find the latest version. I'm not too worried about it. This is 0.72 is good enough. I updated these quite recently. But it's worth looking to see what's here because it matters. If you go, here's the Velociraptor software. This is free open source software for instant response. A Velociraptor is a very powerful tool like Autopsy. So notice down here, here are the assets. There are many, many versions of this thing. You have to find the ones that fit your hardware. Now, I am running an ARM processor. So for me, if I wanted to run it right on the Mac, it would be Darwin, ARM64. Darwin is the Mac's operating system. If I want to run it on Linux, which is what I want to do now, it will be Linux down here. Let's see if I show all 24 assets. Yep, here's Linux ARM64. So this one is the one to run on my Linux machine. And when I go to my Windows machine, it's going to be Windows ARM64, which I don't see here. So I might have to go to the previous version. Let's see if I can find it down here. Here's the assets. And let's find out if there is a Windows ARM64. And there doesn't seem to be, but let me check my instructions because I think I solved this problem. Linux AMD64 and Windows AMD64, that's what you need if you're on Intel hardware, but I'm pretty sure I got it to work on ARM hardware before. I'm just a little confused. I might be able to run the AMD version on Windows, but this is troubling me. Let's see if I'm going to find Windows ARM version anywhere. Windows, AMD, Windows, AMD. What's that?
What's the difference between Windows AMD and ARM?
AMD is an Intel processor, and ARM is a different one. And they're incompatible, but somehow I've been doing this project, so I'm going to have one more try down here, and then maybe I can just use the ARM one. Darwin ARM64, Linux ARM64. I believe I've been running it. Maybe it's running in an emulator. I mean, you can run Intel code on a Windows ARM machine to some extent. We're going to try it and see. I think I've been doing it for a while on this machine, and I forgot to worry about the fact that my Windows machine was running ARM. We'll see how it goes. So I'm just going to go for the version I have here, except I'm going to make it ARM64. So executing these commands, I've got them here. So a cd, make dir, Velociraptor, go into there. All right. Now I'm going to download this thing. But instead of getting the AMD 64 version, I'm going to get the ARM 64 version because this is ARM 64 Linux I'm running. Okay, I didn't find it, so let's go here and get the right link. It's 0.72, the latest version, and I want Linux ARM 64. There it is. So I'm going to copy the link and wget it. Somehow I didn't get it right, although that looks awful close to what I typed in, but anyway, that's the point. All right, there it is. It's downloading that file. One thing about Velociraptor is the executable is the same for the server and the client. So now I have the Linux version of Velociraptor on this machine, and let's go back to the instructions here. All right, now I just have to make it executable and run it with these parameters. So first I make it executable. I can do chmod plus X to make it executable, change mode, and star will change everything in this folder to be executable, which is, there's only one file. /vel will run that, and there's the parameters. So this is going to run the executable, and it's going to generate a configuration and call it velociraptor config.yaml. This is the configuration file that you use to control it. Now, I'm going to need the IP address of this server. We've already found it, and it's up here, 192.168.121.139. So now I need to edit that configuration file. So I'll use this there. Now, these YAML files are like Python. The indentation matters. It has to be neat. So there's 5 places the IP address appears in here, and every place I want it to have the right IP address. So I do Control W, which is search, and Control R, which is replace here. And now I'm going to replace localhost with that address, 192.168.121.138. Oops, I got it wrong. So I'll cancel. It's going to be Control W, Control R, localhost, and I got it wrong. 192.168.121.139. Okay. So I'll say yes, yes, 2 of them, and there are 2 more. Control W, Control R. There are 127.001. There. And this also has to be replaced by the real address, 192.168.121.139. And I'll say yes, yes, yes. So a total of 5 occurrences. Now I just save it with Control X, Y, Enter. Now I'm going to create an administrator user. So I want to run the same executable. There's only one executable used in Velociraptor. It's always the same. So I do /ve tab, and then this time I do config Velociraptor. Using that configuration file, create an administrator user named admin. So that creates the user. Now I give it a password. I'm just going to put in plain password. Okay. Now I've done that. Now we can start the server, which is run the same executable with the same configuration file, and then front end -v, which will run the server GUI so we can control it, and it's going to be verbose, so it'll print messages here so we can tell it's working. So there it is, config front end -v, and there it goes, showing it starting, and now it tells you front end is ready to handle client requests at 8,000, and the GUI is ready at this address on 8889. So this address is the GUI for Velociraptor, and I'll just open it in Safari, I suppose. It doesn't matter what machine I'm on or anything that can reach it. Okay, the connection is not private. This is good. What it's doing is it's an HTTPS connection, but we haven't paid for a public certificate or downloaded a free one, so we're using a self-signed certificate. So it's show details, and then visit this website anyway. And I'll say, yes, I want to visit it. Now it wants the name and password I just chose, which was admin and password. And sign in. And there we are. This is what Velociraptor looks like. You have the cute picture, and you have some tasks available here. All right. Now, we can't do much with it now because we have the server, but we don't have a client. The whole point of Velociraptor is you're running a server and you have a fleet of machines, maybe hundreds or thousands of machines in your company, and you're going to use this server to investigate them, to find malware and security problems on them, and to do forensic investigations of them remotely over the network. So you have to run an agent on each one of those clients to control. So now I've got the server running, and there's a flag to get here. All right. All right, now I'm going to add a Windows client. So I'm going to edit the Velociraptor config.yaml. So I'm going to leave it running and open a new session and connect again with SSH, Debian, at 192.168.121.139. All right, now go into the same directory. So they read that configuration file there, and now I'm going to edit that file with nano. All right. And now I have to add one line, because when the client, Windows client, I'm going to make, phones home to the server, it's going to get upset, just like Safari did, at the fact that the certificate is not valid. And it would refuse to connect unless I put in this line, which tells it that I'm in fact using self-signed SSL. So it's okay that I'm using a self-signed certificate instead of a real one. That goes after the nonce line. So Right here is where it goes. 2 spaces, and then that stuff. Now it's right. So I save this with Control X, Y, Enter, and now I create a Windows client installer. So this is the command that creates a client configuration file. What I'm doing here is making an agent that knows how to phone home to the server. This is very much like how you make malware with a tool like Metasploit. This is going to create a configuration called client config to get started. It's going to copy that config, and it's going to get the right address of the server because I just put it in the other configuration file. Now I'm going to have to get a Windows client, and I'm going to try using the AMD 64 because I was unable to find a Windows ARM version. We're going to see if the AMD will work. It might. In fact, I think it will because I think I've been using it on these machines without noticing anything wrong with it. So this will be the Windows AMD executable. Well, that's disturbing. All right, let's go to the Velociraptor page and get the right URL. Maybe they changed the URL. It's a little rude that my instructions don't work anymore, but everybody keeps changing everything. Let's make it in another tab. Let's find the 0.72 Windows version. Okay. Windows. You know, I think there used to be a lot more versions up here. I think they have been changing things. Anyway, here's the Windows AMD 64 version. Copy link address. All right. And I just want to compare these two commands to try to see what the difference is. There's the one that failed. Here's the new one. It's a little bit shorter. Yep, 0.72.0. They added a 0.0 to it here. This was a release candidate, and now I guess it's not a release candidate anymore. Okay, that's what's happened. All right, anyway, I've got it for what it's worth. All right, so here's the Velociraptor Linux executable, and this is the Velociraptor Windows executable. Now, the next thing I have to do is add the configuration file into the Windows executable so it will know how to phone home to the server. So that is here. You run it and do config repack into the client from the client, and then create this thing called repackaged velociraptor.exe. So I run the same executable and then config repack. However, this name is not right, as I've discovered. The name of the thing, of the Windows client, is different. So I'm going to use tab completion to get it right. In Windows and Linux in the command line, all you need is the first few letters, and then you can use a tab to complete it. So it's Velociraptor W for Windows. There. Now it's the right name. Client configuration.yaml creates repackaged velociraptor.exe. And I think it's done. I don't think anything bad happened. It will repack it. Let's see how it looks. Yep, now there is a thing called repackaged Velociraptor here, which is about the same size as the Windows executable, so that's the file I want. Now, to move it to my Windows machine, there are various ways to do it. The way I think I'm going to do it is this way, by just running Apache on my Linux server so I can download it directly. So let's see if I am already running Apache on here. If I do sudo ss-pant, that'll show me the open ports. And you see port 22 is open. That is SSH. And this 8889 stuff is Velociraptor. And I don't have Apache, so I am going to have to install Apache. So before you install software, it's a good practice to run update first, so you don't try to install old versions of software that might not exist anymore. And then you install Apache, the most common free web server, and it automatically runs. So now your machine will be sharing web pages, and so all I have to do is copy the repackaged Velociraptor to the root of the web page, which is var www.html. This will put that file in the folder that the web server is sharing, but I need the S in front of it. Okay. And the next thing I have to do is make sure everyone can read it. So this will make everybody allowed to read it. So it'll be downloadable from the Windows machine. So now I should be able to download that thing on the Windows virtual machine by just opening a browser. So here, for example, I've got a Firefox or something running. So I should be able to put HTTP and then that address, 192.168.121.139. If I go there, I see the Apache default page. This is what happens when you install Apache. It gives you a default page like this. And if you want to download that file, I just put a slash and a file name here. Repackaged Velociraptor.exe. Good, it's downloading it, so it's good. So now I should be able to run that from the command line. So, and we'll see if it works. If I go to my downloads folder, which is where I put it, then to a directory, there it is, repackaged Velociraptor. If you run it with no parameters at all, you should get a help message, and this will be the moment of truth where I find out if I can run it on this machine. Because it's really for an Intel processor. And apparently, it worked. It opened another prompt. I guess I need to be an administrator command prompt. Let me do that. It seemed to demand administrator privileges, so CMD, run as administrator. Great, it runs. So the Intel version will run on here. You can run Intel software on a Windows for ARM processor to some extent. It just does not everything always works. Let me make the font bigger. There we go. All right, so I go to Users, and then SAM CC, and then Downloads, and then I do a directory, and the repackaged Velociraptor is here, so I can run it. And now I get the help message. Okay, and so if it's going to work, all you do is service install. That'll make it automatically run in the background and automatically restart every time you restart the machine. So if everything's set up and your networking is correct, this will now be phoning home to the Linux server, and you'll be able to tell from here. It'll show you, received a post from this of length 2451. This is very good. These posts from that other address are the information coming in from the Windows machine to the server. That's what you should see. If you have something wrong with the addresses or a firewall in the way, then you won't see that. So if it's true, I can click here and go to Show All, and there I have it, a Windows host. So my Linux server is now controlling a Windows machine, and I can now investigate that Windows machine. If I click here, I can now go to the virtual file system, for example, and I can look at what's on the C drive. If you go to NTFS, you choose something here, and then it doesn't load the information until you hit this to refresh this directory, because it has to make a separate request to get the information from the server. So here it is. It's got the some information at the root of the machine, and thought it would show it on the left too. I should be able to find the C drive somewhere. Here it is. There's the C drive. So I can click that. I'm having trouble digging down into it. Recursively refresh. Let's try recursive refresh and see what happens. And while that's going, I'm going to check my instructions. Somehow I can't see inside the C drive easily. Here. All right, then virtual file system is there, NTFS. And down here, well, yeah, I should expected to see a C drive. All right, I thought there was a way to dig down through the folders, but I'm not figuring out how to do it now. Anyway, let's try the registry. It's a more interesting place to go. Here's the registry. And again, it doesn't show me anything until I load it. And I'm refreshing. Okay, here's the various folders. So if I want to go into HKey current user, where a lot of the good stuff is, if I double click it, I'm having a little trouble figuring out how to dig down into it. Recursively download this directory from the client. Refresh. Thought it would show up here. Let's see if my instructions shine any light on this. Yes, it's supposed to expand there, and somehow that is not happening. did I hit the wrong thing? Let's see, on the left side, hit this, refresh this container. All right, and the refresh container is this button, so I'm doing it right. It looks like something is not working quite right here in my GUI. I should be seeing this stuff on the left, and somehow I'm not. I'm going to try refreshing this browser. Ah, I just had to refresh the browser. Okay, now it's working. Now I can dig down into things. That's what I wanted to see, so I could go into HKey local machine and reload that. This is one of the limitations of using a browser interface. It often doesn't refresh as much as it should. So now I've opened that, and you see inside there's things like hardware and SAM. And if I refresh the browser, there they are. Now I'm getting the tree structure set up here. So you can gradually dig through and find out what's on the Windows machine this way. This is a very clumsy way to see what's on the Windows machine, and I never do it this way, but it is a way to get started. All right, what's much better is to use artifacts. And here we're going to get, I think, netstat. Yep. So instead of this, what I prefer to use is the automated tools. So I'm going to go back to show all, click on the Windows machine, and if you use the, I think it's collected you click on. Let me go here. Yep, collected. These are the canned scripts that harvest interesting things from your machine, and these are fantastic. I've never had to use anything else. You can just, there are pre-made scripts to find out anything you want to know. So netstat is here, Windows netstat, and if I do netstat enriched, I think it gives me more information. If you click on it, it will tell you what it's going to do, the network status, and you can just launch it here. It will now send a request to the Windows machine for this information. The hourglass tells you it's in progress. When you click on that line, you'll see information here. You can see the log of every request going back and forth, and there's been 21 of them so far. And when it's done, you can go to results, and now you see the information, and it's showing me all the network connections. So service host is connecting to something with these process ID, and there should be port numbers someplace. Yep, over here is source port, destination port, source port 135. All right, and someplace in here is going to be Velociraptor, phoning home. So I could look for this list and find it, or I could do another query and limit it to just that. So let me try that. I should be able to add another one and do netstat enriched. And now I can configure parameters. And here I can say process name. I'm going to make this just Velociraptor. VEL is probably enough. The name should contain VEL. That's probably going to do it. Let's see. I launched that one. And there it goes. Okay, it's done. And so it found Velociraptor making a connection here on port 8000. That is the port connection that is taking information from the Windows machine and sending it to my Linux server on port 8000. And that's the only one. So anyway, that's a much more practical way to investigate machines, is to choose artifacts that way. And let's see if there's anything else we're doing here. The destination port is fine. Yeah, that's it. So that shows the basic operation of Velociraptor. Now I've got it set up. So that's all I wanted to show you for this one. Let me stop the recording and check.